Start making sense, you rotten book, or you're gonna be sorry. Maybe I'll rip your pages out one by one, or maybe I'll put you in the goddamn furnace. How can someone with such a big smart brain get hypnotized like a little huh? Oh, Shadow Lord, I love you, Shadow Lord. Come over here and give Vice a big sloppy kiss, Shadow Lord. Now pull your head out of your goddamn ass and start helping us.
This is Yoko Taro. This is Yoko Taro. This is also Yoko Taro. Yoko Taro is the brainchild responsible for the Drakengard and NieR series.
Except for Drakengard 2, but that game sucks.
Yoko Taro is responsible for scenes like this.
La 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 la, la 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 la. Watchers dance, such fun.
The Watchers dance. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. The Watchers, they dance.
And this.
His wondrous grace has become a god. Become a god. His wondrous grace has become a god. Become a god. We as well shall become as gods. Become as gods. We as well shall become as gods. Become as gods. All of you shall become as gods. Become as gods. All of you shall become as gods. Become as gods. All of you shall become as gods. We'll all die together and become as gods.
And this.
Nope. Sorry.
Oh man, we're gonna have some fun in this review.
A man who ironically never wanted people to associate his face with his creations, Yoko Taro has produced all those games you've probably heard about from other people, but when you asked them whether or not they were actually worth physically playing, their resounding response was, they kinda play like shit. During the development of NieR Automata, there was a controversy about the main character 2B allegedly having a photorealistic backdoor. And this was a big deal. Controversies like this had a bad habit of attracting negative attention, which could easily have tanked the game's release from conservative outlets. Ultimately, this rumor was debunked, as of course it was, but it still directed a lot of heat towards Platinum Studios and Taro himself.
Of course, it also inspired a lot of erotica.
When prompted about the controversy and the huge swath of porn that arose from it, Yoko Taro was quoted as saying, Can you put it in a zip drive and send it to me?
I love this guy so much.
It's important that you understand exactly who Yoko Taro is, because he is Drakengard, as far as I'm concerned. This maniac that walks around in what is a cosplay for his own game is the driving force for some of the most bewildering, obnoxious, brutal, but also captivating design in any game I've ever seen. I have never seen an artist so uninterested in making their product appeal to a general audience.
It'd be like if someone baked the most delicious chocolate cake in the world and then just buried it in the desert.
But underneath this casual disregard for people to buy his games, there's a very introspective and unique mentality of real themes and archetypes in video games. Take, for example, the concept of killing. Think about how many wolves, slimes, bandits, and other creatures you kill over the course of a single RPG. How many bodies your plucky anime boy leaves strewn on the ground. How many sapient existences you snuff out simply because the game wouldn't continue without you doing it. Death is a standard in video games, and why wouldn't it be? But to Yoko Taro, any single person capable of murdering hundreds, if not thousands of creatures, couldn't possibly emerge at the end of a story unscathed. And that's the core principle of NieR Replicant, a story about a plucky anime boy and his young sister, a girl ridden with a cryptic black disease. How far is he willing to go to find the cure for his sister? In a world of closed walls and dark monsters, how much death is too much? And what is he willing to sacrifice to save the one he loves?
If you were looking for the game with the lady with the big butt, that's a different game. It's the sequel. Look at that ass, though. It's got more polygons in it than all of Ocarina of Time.
So, the Drakengard and NieR series has a long history of being, shall we say, divisive. It often tackles mature themes of sex and sexual identity, the deep dive into the carnal urges of humanity, such as our obsession with killing and murder, and even the concept of identity, and what it really means to be human. If we were to strip away all pretense of morality, and indulged in the extremes of our most base desires, what would be left of the line between human and the monsters we so desperately attempt to destroy? Of course, this is all tied up with a wonderful bow of just utter dog gameplay. Bad controls, bad camera, bad platforming, copy-paste gameplay and enemy design, the gall to mock the player for finding it unfun, sections where the game just becomes unnecessarily difficult and obtuse for no reason whatsoever.
Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, you, oh my god, I wasted 19 hours of my life on this crap!
I swear to God, I'm gonna find whoever made the ending to Drakengard 3 and I'm gonna make them eat a house! So anyway, that's Drakengard. It's a hard recommend.
So why do people like this series? Well, as I've said before on this channel, a game doesn't have to be good for you to like it, and it definitely doesn't need to be bad for you to hate it. Sometimes a game is just so batshit insane, you can't help but to appreciate it, even if it is a technical nightmare to actually play. For this reason, the Draken NieR series is the penultimate definition of a cult classic, a series of great insight and unique vision for storytelling and taboo themes, but just not something most people are going to be willing to sit through outside of a YouTube cutscene compilation.
How many times have I told you? Don't roll around in the f***ing mud!
Damn it, Drakengard. I'm trying to make a point here.
It's no surprise then that, despite technically being a sequel to an ending from Drakengard 1,
it's the ending where the protagonist gets isekai to modern-day Tokyo, fights a giant salt monster with the power of rhythm games, and then gets shot down by the Japanese Air Force. Thanks, Yoko Taro.
from this they established the NieR series, which, despite similar themes and references, is entirely its own product. Technically all of these games are separate stories. You won't lose anything by jumping between them, as they're otherwise their own self-contained narratives.
Except for Drakengard 2, but that game sucks.
Largely influenced by the tragic events of 9/11, and originally released as NieR Replicant and NieR Gestalt in Japan in 2010, the chief differences between the two versions are the protagonist, changing from a young boy in Replicant to an older man in NieR Gestalt, respectively. Otherwise, the games were virtually identical. Only NieR Gestalt was released to America, rebranded as simply NieR. The stated reason for this decision had something to do with American sensibilities. Japanese producers were unsure if the American audiences would be interested in another RPG about a pretty anime boy on a quest to save his sister.
I find it hard to argue with that logic, not that it matters because the game still sold like ass.
What we got instead was a curious case of localization. Instead of a story about a brother and sister, we instead got a story about a daughter and oh god, what is wrong with his face?
Looks like a rotten potato someone chewed up and then regurgitated onto someone's neck.
But despite appearances, Mr. Potato Head over here was actually a pretty bold move at the time. Remember, this was 2010, 4 years before The Last of Us came in to ruin the AAA market with father/young sibling plots for the next 7 years. Making the core relationship about a father, particularly an old, not particularly attractive one, was a pretty unique dynamic, even if the core script of the game wasn't noticeably changed from the other version.
Yes. You and I are friends now.
Okay, maybe they should have made a few more script changes.
But forget all that. What about NieR Replicant 1.22474487139?
It's a remake of the other version that we didn't get in America, which was NieR Replicant. Yeah. Yeah, I know it's confusing.
And this is a proper remake. Obviously, there's a significant graphical overhaul, but they also went back and redesigned most of the core combat systems, adding things like parries, quick turns, magic during combos, and basically just overhauling the game feel to make it much more smooth.
Look, man, there's a lot of things that make the original NieR great, but the gameplay was not one of them. The best thing I can say about the original gameplay is that it was serviceable. That's being generous.
Your attacks have a pretty good heft to them, especially the two-handed swords, some of which send enemies flying around the field. The magic system has also been given a tidy upgrade, now with the added option of unleashing attacks mid-combo, and just generally speeding them up to make the combat a bit snappier. Is this the best combat in the series?
No.
But it does the job well, and it manages to stay relatively fresh for most of the game. Oh, also, did I mention this game's a bullet hell? This game's a bullet hell. The largest gripe I can levy here, though, is still pretty bad. Despite having new updated movesets, there's still only 3 weapons in this game. They may have added a few shiny baubles to the system, but it doesn't change the fact that acquiring new weapons doesn't modify your moveset at all. Picking up a new one-handed sword won't actually change your move pool, other than some purely numerical changes. Actually, that leads into its own problem, since there are totally weapons in the game that are just statistically better than others.
Welcome to Sarvox's guide to the best weapon in the game. First, get an eagle egg from this one specific spot in the Eyrie. Next, get the Phoenix Spear. Next, upgrade it.
Nice.
And you're done.
The end result is about the same as the original. You'll play around with the weapons and magic a bit, but there's a good chance you'll just gravitate towards the ones that do the job, and quickly discard the rest. Does it hurt the gameplay? Not really, but after you find your favorite combo and spells, combat will take a back burner pretty quickly. Okay, what else? Well, there's some extra cutscenes. They added the DLC content from the original into the remake. That was nice of them. Actually, a lot of the newer content is based on the material from the side stories in Grimoire NieR.
That is a rabbit hole I am not going down today.
What else? Oh, they re-recorded all the dialogue for the main cast. And they also recorded new dialogue for every NPC in the game. That didn't used to be there. So, that's pretty nuts. There's a new ending.
Oh crap, I haven't talked about the endings yet.
So, unlike every other game in existence, the Dragon NieR series uses a very distinct style of multiple endings. See, instead of giving you a choice, all the endings are linear. So, when you beat the game, you get ending A, which unlocks the second route to get ending B, and then C, and so on and so forth. This is how it's been for every one of these games, and it's also the reason why they've historically reviewed very poorly. What this means is, the credits are basically a big lie that NieR doesn't want to tell you about. See, if you were playing NieR Replicant until you saw credits, you would only be seeing about half of the game. It's a problem so bad that they actually had to put a message into NieR Automata so people would keep playing it.
It's a real bummer, especially because some of the best content in the game is right after this point. And it's a crying shame that some people stop right after they see the first ending.
If you don't have the patience for this, I understand, but the game is streamlined to support this style of playthrough. Although, fair warning, some of these endings can be a bit of a downer.
For reference, the best ending of Drakengard is the one where almost everyone dies and your only companion sacrifices themselves to save the world. And that's the good ending.
So what's the actual story here? Well, before we can do that, first we need to go through the intro.
Vice! You
No,
dumbass!
no, not that one.
Although I do really like that one.
Okay, yeah, this one.
mention this game has a really good soundtrack?
We get a slow pan in on our main characters, Brother NieR and his sickly sister Yona.
For the record, his name isn't NieR, but I'm gonna keep calling him that. His actual name is whatever you name your profile. So, what is NieR then? Is it acronym? Is it a weird Japanese pun? Is it a meteoric physicist from the 20th century that used mass spectrometry to isolate uranium-235, leading to the development of the atomic bomb? I don't f***ing know.
After a short scene of the siblings struggling to survive in a harsh world, Brother NieR attempts to fight off some monsters but fails, only to be forced to make a deal with what looks to be a book with a Satan face. What follows is a haunting sequence of your character mopping the floor with these creatures, which we later find out are known as shades, spectral beasts that bleed very tangible blood. But despite fending off all the monsters, the boy rushes back to his young sister, only to find her collapsed, taken over by a dark disease.
Oh no, plot disease. The most fatal and incurable of all diseases.
It's a tragic and brief section that gives us a chance to bask in the true despair of the setting, a horrible shell of a world infested with monsters. It allows us a moment to deconstruct one of the traits of these types of stories, that no matter how much power you hold, or sacrifices you make, sometimes the things you truly love will still slip from your grasp. And then we fast forward 1400 years later.
I'm sorry, did you think that was the intro? That wasn't the intro, that was the tutorial.
Our actual story begins here, in a definitely not PS2-era medieval fantasy RPG hometown. We follow a lone young boy and his little sister, who look conspicuously similar to the characters from the sequence before. Oh hey, soundtrack here is pretty good too. There's even a character here that when you get close enough will start singing along. Neat.
On a semi-related note, you ever been so obsessed with a piece of music you just had to know where it came from? No? Just me? No, whatever.
The soundtrack was my first exposure to NieR. I never played any of these games when they came out, and similar to most people at the time, I can't say that I was really interested in them. But I remember one day when I was listening to a video game music compilation, a single song popped up in my queue, simply labeled Grandma. And the second I heard it, it captivated me with its haunting melody. Even without the context, I could tell that this song was something special, and I just had to listen to the rest.
I didn't even have to touch the game, and it managed to hook me right in. That day, for no other reason, I went out and bought the game and started playing it right away.
I am not exaggerating here. This soundtrack might be one of the best of all time, and I really don't say that lightly.
Uh-oh, boys and girls, that sounds like the tangent alarm. You know what that means. It's time to talk about music.
Music is very important. Obviously, that goes double for sound. It can be the difference between a gunshot feeling like hitting someone with a bowl of chicken noodle soup and hitting someone with the hammer of God. But sometimes people underestimate the true lifting power of a strong melody. This is what turns this into this. Oh my God!
I have a firm belief that the difference between a great game and a masterpiece is the soundtrack. Any game that has a truly great soundtrack gets bumped up an extra 2 points on the final score to me.
And the thing that often does the heavy lifting is what's known as a leitmotif. What is a leitmotif? Well, it's a melody or phrase that's used regularly in a composition and associated with a concept. Or, to put it another way, it's a theme song, basically. Leitmotifs are often used to convey tone, often by assigning them with something.
To demonstrate this effect, let's go over some famous examples.
See, I don't even have to put a picture on the screen, and you already know what I'm referencing. That is the power of a leitmotif. But the true strength of a leitmotif is in repetition. All you need to do is take it, change it a little bit, and all of a sudden, you have a completely different tone. You can also combine different leitmotifs to take two tones and make something completely new. Add a little extra timing, and layer these different versions on top of one another, and you can get a composition that can blow people's heads off.
Hey, if you don't like the rest of the review, at least you can say you learned something.
So then, it's no surprise that NieR Replicant's soundtrack is absolutely riddled with leitmotifs. You can't go a single track without finding some connection to a later moment. And to top it off, there are multiple versions of just about every track in the game that dynamically swell and fall with the action. Pretty much every track in this game has been given an update from the original, and the beauty is, they aren't just instrumental overhauls or remastered tracks, they're completely different interpretations with new tones.
If you like this soundtrack, you should really consider checking out the original as well. A+ stuff. Here's another one.
It's important to understand that this soundtrack was produced with pinpoint precision. You can almost get the impression that the music was written first and the scenes second, which shows a complex understanding of both musical and narrative beats.
We get it.
What?
You like the music. Can you get on with it already?
You're not supposed to talk over the narration. Oh god, he's become self-aware again. Alright, there we go. What were we talking about again? Oh yeah. So anyway, after some simple quests for Devil and Popola, our residential hot redheads, our younger sister Yona suddenly runs off to an ancient ruin to find a cure for her crippling plot disease.
Oh no, not plot disease. The most fatal and incurable of all diseases.
We chase after her, only to find the ruin overrun with dangerous shades.
Of course.
We fight to the top, only to find her unconscious behind a mysterious, magically sealed wall. So, we do the only thing an RPG protagonist knows, and beat the living shit out of it. Unfortunately, it doesn't break the barrier, but it does free a book that looks strangely similar to that Satan book from the tutorial.
My friend once called him, and I quote, "that asshole book," which I think is pretty on point.
This is Grimoire Weiss. He is a magical talking book. He is also, probably, one of the best characters in this game.
I am Grimoire Weiss. My very name brings kingdoms to their knees.
Then do it already, Weiss!
You will refer to me by my full and proper name.
Wait a second.
Who's that Pokemon?
It's Liam O'Brien!
How dare you compare me to a common cookbook?
We use his power to dispatch the shades, and then 2 animated statues that serve as our first boss. And rather brutally, I might add.
If there's one thing this game does right, it's finishers. You don't kill enemies in this game, you massacre them. Let's take a look, shall we? I like the part where he stabbed the guy.
You rescue your sister and go back home, but the twins actually recognize Grimoire O'Brien as a figure from an old folktale.
It's a nice touch at this point that the UI just becomes a book, because you're literally just reading out of Grimoire Vice. It's a very nice diegetic UI.
It seems that in order to regain his power, you'll need to find the sealed verses, which are this game's version of magic/plot devices. And it is said that with this power, he could cure your sister's crippling plot disease.
Oh no! The plot disease! The most fatal and incurable of all diseases! Oh. Sorry, I think it just blacked out there for a second. What did I miss?
And that's basically the long and short of it. Go out, find new powers, save your sister. Nothing super crazy here. But see, the difference here is in the details. You're not just leaving your sister behind to go adventure. You're still coming back to see her constantly. After every leg of your journey, Brother NieR requires you to go back and check on her. You know, considering the whole terminally ill thing. Not only can you do several side quests with her,
we'll get to those later,
but the entire focus of the game is built around your relationship with her. Even the loading screens are riddled with her. You can't go between 2 rooms without seeing bits of her diary talking about how much she loves spending time with you, or how she spends the time waiting for you to come back.
It's almost like it's setting some sort of theme for later.
It's a nice little detail here that you can see the dates changing on every loading screen. It's clear that even though the game isn't that long, a lot of time is definitely passing during your journey. You also get these sequences where she's trying to walk next to you on the loading screen and... Oh, God! Oh, wait. Oh, she's fine. Okay, false alarm. Unlike some games where they desperately try to convince you to care about your family, NieR takes the most direct approach possible. Even if you, the player, doesn't like Yona, Brother NieR does. And he is not afraid to tell you about it, even if it means making decisions you may not agree with.
I could talk about how they use this idea later, but I'm desperately trying to avoid spoilers here.
But your journey is not spent alone, because alongside Liam O'Cookbook, you'll find plenty of other fun, wacky characters make up your crew.
I'm going somewhere with this, I promise.
Hey, let's play a game. It's called What Do They Sound Like? First up is one of the main characters of the game. Based on her design, we can tell that she's a bit risque, but reserved, somewhat shy, and extremely feminine. So, what do they sound like?
Die! Die, die, die! I'm gonna pull out your teeth and cram them up your ass! Rot in hell, you f***ing asshole!
Did you just say what I think you said?
I'll tear out your goddamn eyes and piss in the sockets! I'm going to slowly walk over to you, cram my hand inside your goddamn ass chest, and pull out your f***ing heart!
Hey, that's Laura Bailey. I like her. Okay, next character.
Okay, you can see by this guy's equipment he's a sage or hermit of some sort. He's obviously unhinged, definitely a little on the crazy side, and appears to be some sort of horrible skeleton creature. So, what do they sound like?
Welcome back, Master Emile.
Hello, Sebastian. I'm glad you're doing well. You've got a super important mission. You can't sleep out in the rain. What if you catch a cold? You really shouldn't push yourself. Hey, I've got an idea. How about you and me search outside and get some nice fresh air in the process? I like camping with Kaine. Sometimes we sit around the fire and tell stories, or roast...
Emile, that's enough. I've got a f***ing image to maintain.
That's right! He's a f***ing cinnamon bun! Do you get where I'm going with this?
Many of the designs in this game are intentionally built against the personalities of the characters. It's almost like when they sent the story over to the artists, they deliberately gave them the opposite script. It reinforces a theme prevalent in the game, that despite outward appearances, there's usually a lot more going on behind your original impression of these characters. And it's one of the things that NieR Replicant does very well.
But what about the gameplay, I hear you ask? Excellent question, person I can't hear. It's really old.
Look man, this might be a 2021 remake, but it's still a game from 2010. They don't make games like this anymore. And by that I mean, thank God they don't make games like this anymore. Don't get me wrong, the combat's updated for the better, and they added a sprint to make traversal much faster, but this is some severely outdated game design. The main quest itself is pretty straightforward, and you do unlock several types of fast travel over the course of the game, but pretty much all the side content is the worst type of boring, tedious fetch quests.
Hey, I know you. You're that kid who takes any job, no matter how weird or demeaning.
Every single side quest is exactly the same. 1. Talk to a guy. 2. Guy wants a thing. 3. Pray to God you have that thing in your inventory. 4. Go get it anyway because they want 10 of them. 5. Look up a guide because several of these items are hidden in the environment in randomized loot drops. 6. Go to the other end of the world map. 7. Get the item after buying it or grinding for an hour. 8. Come all the way back and turn the item in, only to discover that what you paid for the materials was actually more than the reward. 9. Cry in the corner.
Why are they so bad?
And do you know what the worst part is? You know what you get for beating most of these quests? Money, which you can only spend on materials for other quests.
Here's some gold. I'll let you know as soon as I need my floor swept or a toilet cleaned.
God damn it. And do you know what you get for 100% completion?
You get nothing!
It's almost like they designed these quests to be unfun on purpose, just to punish completionists, which I find kind of hilarious, quite honestly.
You ever wish you could just warp back to the client after you get their stuff?
Whoa.
Yeah, it's apparently a kind of magic that can zap you to faraway places in an instant.
Ah, that one. Well, I would stay away from such devilry were I you, lad.
How come?
Because all of the sages who attempted said spell were reduced to mincemeat when they struck obstacles in their path.
Wow. Alright then. Walking it is.
F*** you.
And I have a good reason to believe that the game has it out for you. Throughout the game, your progress is tracked with a big ol' percentage mark.
And you are not going to get 100%. Oh no, because they know you're going to try to do these quests, even when you know they suck.
They put in a mission specifically to be as missable as possible, and if you don't do it fast enough, it's gone forever. At a very particular point in the game, you gotta go talk to this guy, right here, 3 different times, and then he'll give you the quest. Which, of course, is another shitty fetch quest. This is the only time in the game this ever happens, and it's the main reason most people will end the game at 99% completion. And I'll remind you, once you get past the halfway mark, you can't come back and do it.
Now, personally, I try not to swear in my reviews when possible. That being said, these side quests are f***ing terrible.
Look, I'm not gonna say they're well designed. They're fetch quests, plain and simple. But inside of some of the worst quest design I've ever seen, there's also some of the best storytelling and world building.
Allow me to give you an example.
You meet an elderly man who lives in your village. After speaking with the kindly gentleman, you discover that his dog has gone missing, and the man wants someone to go look for him in his stead. Of course, being the plucky protagonist he is, Brother NieR decides to go search for him. However, it seems the old man was wise to send you instead. After a quick search, you discover his beloved pet, swarmed by monsters, long since slain. After dispatching the beasts, you discover that the dog has some distinctive leaves in his mouth. Not looking forward to breaking the news to the old man, your party mulls over what to tell him.
It's too bad about that poor dog. This is gonna be hard for that old-timer to deal with.
Be they dog or man, no living thing can escape their ultimate fate.
That include you, Vice?
In truth, I have never considered the question. I suppose at some point in time I may simply wink out of existence.
Well, that sounds horrible.
Say...
Yeah?
See here, lad. If I ever find myself departing this world...
Quit being morbid, Vice. Besides, you can't die. You're made of paper.
One can always hope, I suppose.
Oh, I neglected to mention, whenever you get a quest, your party will always chime in with relevant information. There's unique dialogue between your party for just about every quest in the game, and this can range from informative...
Sheep hunting. There really is no task too immodest for you.
Hey, it's harder than it sounds. They're really squirrely and they run away fast.
So smite them with magic.
Aha!
What is it? Shades?
No, you're right. If I use magic, I don't have to get close.
Might I make another suggestion?
What?
Do not yell like a madman every time you come to a realization.
Too personal.
Does he really think she'll forgive him if he just gives her a fur?
It does seem somewhat materialistic.
Are you guys for real? When someone gives me something for free, I'm happy as a pig in
This world would be a great deal simpler if nothing but Kaine's lived in it.
I'll pretend that's a compliment.
To the truly bizarre.
How could he accidentally make a sexual stimulant instead of a seasickness medication?
Calm down, Vice. Maybe it just happened.
They are completely different drugs with completely different effects.
Hey, everyone makes mistakes.
Thanks, Okotaro.
So the party returns to the old man, only to find someone else standing in his place, and, well, I'm just gonna play the footage.
Excuse me, have you seen the old man who lives here?
You mean Granddad? He passed away. His heart finally gave out on him.
Oh man. Looks like he went with his best friend after all. Here, hold on a second. His dog had this leaf in his mouth when we found him.
That's the herb Granddad used for his heart medication. Max must have been fetching it for him. Well, I suppose I owe you a great deal. I can't give you much, but I hope you'll accept this.
Thanks, Yokotaro.
And that's just one of the quests that NieR Replicant has to offer. Does this mean that you have to do all of them?
No!
But if you happen to see one along the way, it might be worth checking out.
Oh, also, a number of them will disappear and be lost forever after a certain point, although it is fairly obvious when that is. Fair warning.
But if you do want to skip them or do them all, that's fine too. All the side quests are 100% optional.
But for those of you looking for the quote-unquote good ones, I have listed them here.
And that's pretty much all I can get into without getting into heavy spoiler territory. But really, there's a lot of little things that add to the charm of NieR Replicant. Side quests don't appear on the main map, instead only showing up on the mini-map and within sight of NPCs. But if you go to the local bard in your hometown, they'll direct you to where quests are waiting, which actually makes a lot of sense. Someone who spends a lot of time lounging around and listening to people's troubles probably would be the person to get quests from, and fits with her troubadour status. NPCs may seem like pretty standard fare for the genre, but many of them have ongoing stories as the game advances, often commenting on the quests you've completed, and usually giving you a strong look into some of the more subtle aspects of the setting, such as why it's always daytime, or why the Kingdom of Facade looks like it was designed by a man with half his brain missing, or why Brother NieR can't swim. It never gets old.
Incidentally, you should try to drown yourself as much as possible.
There's a lot of systems you may not always be aware of, but the game is quick to throw tutorials at you. Although, for some reason, you don't just have them. They literally throw them at you, which means you can get put in truly surreal situations where you can get tutorials for things you've been using for literal hours. Just got a tutorial for collecting tutorials. Weapon stories are here from Drakengard, many of which are just Drakengard references, so if you happen to upgrade a weapon, make sure to check it out in the menu. Much like the quests, weapons can be too much of a pain to deal with, but there are some fantastic short stories in here if you happen to have the materials on you. You can also collect fish. That's cool, I guess. I think I kind of hate this game.
Seriously though, this game can be a completionist nightmare.
A few things did change in the remake, and not necessarily for the better. Of course, if you've never played the original, you'll have no idea what I'm talking about.
Screw it! My review, and I want to complain about things that don't matter.
So, the monologue that played in the beginning of this video was placed pretty infamously in the original NieR. The second you boot up the game in the original, and I mean literally the first thing you hear, was "Weiss you dumbass." It was single-handedly the most baffling decision I have ever seen in a video game, ever. This is supposed to be your first impression of the game? Laura Bailey committing tactical verbal diarrhea? Like, did they get this idea off of a crack-addicted homeless man on the street?
Just kidding. We all know it was Yoko Taro.
So in the remake, they took it out. Boo. I mean, it's still there, but you have to wait through the second attract trailer and the title screen. And the boar. Oh, don't get me started about the boar. Here, I'm gonna show you a clip, and you tell me what's wrong with this picture. Look at that! Why would you take out infinite boar drifting? It's bullshit! But ultimately, there is an undeniable charm to some of the truly baffling design decisions in NieR Replicant. From the flagrantly underdeveloped mechanics, to the existential nightmare that is the setting, from the tonal nad crusher that is the plot, to the aggressive gameplay changes.
There's a section in this game that just turns into a text adventure for like an hour. Like an hour! And it's great!
So, did they manage to remake the original NieR while making great side quests, quality of life changes, stellar graphics, and an in-depth polished combat system?
They actually did. and that game is called NieR Automata. Ha ha! I still like this game better.
Despite lodging itself firmly in the Drakengard mythology, NieR Replicant is a game that stands entirely on its own merits, and single-handedly manages to obliterate the scope of modern storytelling by being completely unafraid to drench itself in what in any other game would be pretty unsavory themes. Friendship, hatred, despair, child-hearted wonder, revenge, sexual identity, loss, rationalization of atrocities, trauma, the human soul, the nature of the hero justifying their cause, and the villain doing exactly the same.
NieR can get pretty rough, especially further on in the later acts. One of the reasons I really like the tutorial sequence in this game is it sets a great initial tone for the game. Don't be fooled, this game will try to lure you into a false sense of security with that initial hometown RPG setting, but it will try its damnedest to rip your heart out of your chest and stomp on it.
The core of the story is built on a single concept: save your sister. Every decision, every act of violence, every sacrifice is justified with this one idea. And NieR will never let you forget that.
Die, you little b****. Calm yourself. Haste will only lead you to making an ill-timed mistake. An unstable heart is the worst armor one can have.
No time for that, Vice. Gotta get to Yona.
Instead of having characters use their suffering to justify their actions and expect you to agree with them, NieR Replicant simply shows the consequences of their actions, and asks you to consider whether the justification even matters. Because in a world where every fight is to the death, anyone can be a monster if they stand against you.
It would be a sin to keep spoiling any more of this game. But then again, this is coming from the same developer who put scenes from the final boss fight in the opening trailer. What the f***? There's massive spoilers in there! Thanks, Yoko Taro.
NieR Replicant is not the most technically impressive, and its design shows its age about as well as a bleached skeleton, which is to say, it holds up pretty well, but if you spend too much time with it, it'll start to stink up the place a little bit. It's the new hotness, and it's an excellent way to get into the Drakengard series, especially since these games all lead into one another in some fashion.
But don't get into Drakengard 2. That game sucks.
With its steadfast dedication to serious storytelling, definitely PS3-era game design, colorfully memorable characters, expertly intertwined and debatably perfect soundtrack, and impenetrable completionism, NieR Replicant is truly greater than the sum of its parts. Should you play NieR Replicant 1.224744... Wait, hang on a second.
Let's see... Right,
Ah, that makes much more sense.
Even if it is not one of the best games I've ever played, NieR Replicant is one of my favorites. So, yes. Yes, you should play it. Drakengard 2 sucks.